Welcome to the March 19th Planning Board meeting. Today on the agenda, we will review minutes from February 6th. We have two special permits for 82 Interlaken Road, one for a driveway greater than 500 feet and another for increased lot coverage. And then we have a short and sweet article for the town warrant for the town meeting. And then we have a sign application for 44 Main Street. And then we'll talk about agenda items for the next meeting. So has everyone had a chance to review those minutes from February 6th? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just checking to see if anyone from the planning board is on the screen. I don't see anyone. Hi, David. Welcome, David. Okay, any comments on the minutes?
Move to accept.
I second.
We have a motion to accept from Gary, a second from Liz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up, let me get my little public hearing sheet out. We have a public hearing, a special permit, public hearing for 82 Interlaken Road. We have two. We'll start with a driveway request for a driveway greater than 500 feet. Presented by Brent White from White Engineering. Before we start, the following procedures will be followed. Testimony will be limited to the issues directly related to the subject matter. One person at a time, please. All discussion through the chair and voices clearly audible. We always encourage civility and prefer not to have any arguments go down between anyone present. So, Brent, would you like to come up and present?
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, could you both introduce yourself?
Rob Mooney with Wagner Hodgson Landscape Architects.
Okay, and you were on the site visit, yes?
Yes.
Okay,
And Brent White from White Engineering.
okay, thanks, Brent.
Might be on top of a swamp down
This is actually the diagram I'm hoping to use for this presentation.
Brent, are you on top of a speaker there?
by any chance. No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay, speaker.
Great.
Thank you. So before we begin, I have a supplement that was submitted by email earlier today. It relates to both applications here, and I'd like to just give you a hard copy of. Jennifer. This
I
one.
got one.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I printed it, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I did send it to everybody.
Yes, and I
Okay.
actually
No, I-
read
Yeah,
it.
but not
I read
to see
it.
it on paper.
No, it's
Thank you.
Short notice, tried to get a response here, but the part of what we'll be discussing this evening is contained in this, so.
I like it. It was in color.
Yeah, it's easier.
So as stated in the introduction, this is a special permit seeking a section 6.4 for a driveway in excess of 500 feet. Evening. You are, sir. Wait. I believe most board members were present for the site visit we had at the end of February here, but I'd just like to orient it to our site plan. So on this far end here is Interlaken Road, and this is the current curb cut that exists for the cul-de-sac that exists in this location here. We intend to reuse that initial portion of the cul-de-sac to continue a driveway that was currently being utilized as construction access, was permitted as construction access in 2021 when we received our order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. And that continues all the way down to along this alignment to the house site that was approved, in 2021. The length of the driveway is 1,840 feet, so approximately a third of a mile. Get my notes here. The surface of the driveway will, it's currently just a stone base right here, and that will remain a gravel driveway throughout the duration here. There's no intention to pave the driveway at any portion. One item that we'd like to call to your attention is currently, as you know, we have a cul-de-sac right here that when 3 building lots were intended to be served by this, it was built as a subdivision road and approved. However, in this case here, again, serving a single family home, one of the items of concern that the Conservation Commission had with regards to excess topsoil was there any way to possibly take up some of this driveway or plant over that with a more natural surface? So this portion of the cul-de-sac here will actually be restored to more of a natural surface. So eliminating excess gravel driveway that we don't need for the use for the single family home itself. As we follow along the driveway, we've proposed drainage on either side of the driveway itself, as well as turnout areas. Just understanding the horizontal curvature of the driveway here, some areas there may be limited visibility. So we've ensured that each of the critical areas, there's an ability for someone to see a vehicle oncoming. Again, it's a residential driveway. It's not a subdivision road, so there's not anticipated much in the way of actual traffic. But we felt it was important to provide that as a part of the driveway. In this location here is an arch culvert that's been designed and approved by the Conservation Commission that meets the stream crossing standards. We have two small temporary culverts there. I believe they're 10 inches. They're serving their purpose, but they would not be suitable for permanent use. So we are proposing that. As we approach, Sure.
Speak up a bit.
absolutely. Sorry for the mass too. Once we get past the culvert location, we come up in topography and then it was not proposed during the initial special permit review, but outside of the 200-foot setback to the lake, we do have some sport courts that are proposed to be constructed. Not necessarily subject to this application, but what is our discussion with Fire Chief Garofoli. His specific concerns were with regards to just horizontal curvature of the driveway, which he's satisfied with. And the other was that we provide a turnaround area for him. And what made the most sense for us is in this area, we've got a reinforced turf. It's got crushed stone underneath it and then a grass surface. So we're not more gravel driveway than we need. But it's an area that the fire apparatus would be able to turn around in this location. The chief would never intend to bring the actual ladder truck down this portion of the driveway. Ambulance, smaller vehicles would be able to traverse that no problem. But in this case here, the chief was satisfied with where we provided this turnaround area here for that. We have provided in the initial application, the email from the chief verifying that we could move forward with our application. One of the comments during Mr. Cameron's review was just to better understand the context in which the chief was responding. So we have provided that. And really, I'd like to publicly thank Chief Garofoli. We've worked with him for the last year as we started the design of this. So that was a great help as we move forward in the preparation of this application. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
I'll start with other board members. Any questions?
Who are the abutters?
So to the north is the Cohens, and then to the south is the Kramers.
Okay. Thank you.
And we also worked very closely with them over the last year in terms of, for the Cohens on the northern boundary, really providing a mature evergreen screen right along the property boundary where this driveway would be most visible for them. And then, as stated in the original special permit application, currently this property has deeded access off of the Kramers driveway, which you see in this image here. Part of the end result of this, assuming a granting of a special permit and the driveway is constructed and approved by the highway department and the fire chief. Ultimately, once the certificate of occupancy for the home is granted and the driveway is accepted, the applicant seeks to relinquish their rights to this common driveway going forward here. So
When was that planning to be a cul-de-sac or 3 lots?
I believe that,
Before the Brouses bought it?
yes, so that occurred in 2003, I believe is when that subdivision was proposed. It may have been 2004 or 5 before it was actually finally approved, but
Can you elaborate a little bit? So I wasn't aware that there was ever my understanding from this application in 2021. And I think Nancy asked a question about the grade, as you got closer to the lake, was that the property was going to be using that shared driveway for construction.
Here.
And that, I actually specifically remember Nancy asking about the grade as it came closer down to the lake. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because we're not actually, you referenced a construction permit and we're failing to see where that happened.
if you review the site plan from 2021, we show the construction access coming from this driveway past this stream crossing to the work area here.
Okay.
And our intention has been, since that's been established, it was actually less disruptive to the Kramers to use this as access for the home and minimizing damage to their driveway. The home's been under construction for approximately 2 years here, which has helped avoid a great deal of damage along their
So
driveway.
this was a temporary access for construction?
That is correct, yes.
Not a permit, not a construction permit?
Yes, it was clear. I intended to make it clear that this would not be able to remain as a permanent driveway until the special permit applied for this evening was
Okay.
granted.
All right. Okay, so it's a little bit, okay.
And the 10% grade, Like, it just seems like when you come around, yeah, where the cliff is, right?
Correct, and we walk the grade that the driveway will be.
Yeah.
That is
It
the
just
grade.
seems like, whoa.
And I think David had a question about the grade. Can you,
No, David said it was good, I think.
in his report, David, were you?
Yeah, I think he was okay.
I indicated that the driveway has a variability of grades. You know, at the beginning, close to Interlaken Road, it's pretty level.
Yeah.
And then it gradually slopes down. It seems like it's less than 10% to me for most of it. Then it comes up to where the sports courts are going to be. I mean, it actually goes uphill there a little bit. That's still less than 10%. But where it drops down towards the home is where it's steepest.
Yeah.
More than 10%, I can't say that definitively. I didn't measure it. I don't have the equipment to measure that. I just brought it up in the report. I mean, the board has the discretion to approve grades greater than 10%, but I'm not sure what those grades are. So you might be interested in figuring that out.
Yeah, Brent, can you?
It's a maximum 10% in this location here, and that they've actually, as a part of the preparation for the site, been measuring that very closely as they've continued with the rock removal to ensure that they got down to the proper grade. And I know Greg Wellenkamp, the general contractor, is also on the Zoom if you have any specific questions, but I know that's something they've been monitoring very closely. And I have to say, when you walk the driveway, it feels more gentle than it appears on this drawing with regards to the actual ability for a vehicle to turn and come down this driveway here. So the driveway that you walked on at the site visit, aside from a few inches of finished gravel and grading along the sides, that's the grade of the driveway that will be there. And we also know we will not get a certificate of occupancy for the home until the fire chief is satisfied with what that driveway is.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And what's the actual length of the proposed driveway?
1,840 feet, sir.
I see.
So, yeah,
Which is not inconsistent for driveways along this portion of Interlaken Road.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Wish my driveway was that long. Okay.
any other questions from the board?
It was pretty muddy that day, wasn't it?
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, are there elevations of what that's gonna look like?
We don't have any architectural elevations.
I see. Okay,
Yeah, we're just
that's not really
driveway.
relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, at the site visit, I remember in the original request, you talked about sort of turning the footprint of the house. I guess we can talk about that when we do the next one. Yeah. So if there are no more questions from the board, going. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor?
I would like to speak in favor.
Okay,
I would like to
can you
suggest,
identify yourself, please?
sorry, my name is Lori Robbins, the attorney for the applicant. And by way of background, this 3-lot subdivision was created, I think, in the 70s or the 80s, with the idea that 3 separate lots would be created. And until they were developed, there was going to be this easement across the Kramer's property. As it turns out, the current owners purchased all 3 lots, and they're going to be using this as their primary, well, as a residence, and they would like to abandon the shared use with the Kramers. So that's why they're going to the trouble and expense of creating their own driveway. So I would suggest that this is in compliance with all your requirements of the bylaw and in harmony with your general intent and purposes, is essential or desirable to the public convenience of the proposed location because it now provides a separate access for this property owner off of the easement with a butter. It's certainly not going to be detrimental to the adjacent or future character of the neighborhood because it will remain residential, and it's not going to create undue traffic congestion because instead of 3 houses servicing this property, it's going to be 1 driveway servicing this property. And it's not going to overload any public water drainage or septic systems because it will continue to remain on its own septic system. So for those reasons, we would suggest that this board can find in favor of a special permit. for a driveway in excess of 500 feet.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? If not, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Okay, so, yeah,
If this is approved, I would like to put in here that, as a condition, I think that this driveway, shall not be considered a street for purposes of the subdivision control bylaw, and that it may not be used to provide frontage or access to any new lots,
okay,
if that's okay with.
It's not been designed as a subdivision road, so there'd be no intention that we would seek that, but.
Right, but I mean, I think I'd like it spelled out
Okay.
like
Yep.
that.
yeah, we can do that when we, after
Yeah,
we close the public
okay.
hearing and then deliberate. We can talk
I didn't know
about
if anybody
Yeah.
wanted to talk
Yeah.
about that.
that. Okay, so if there are no more comments,
I move we approve the.
well, we close the.
We have to
close-
close, I move we
Yeah.
close the public hearing.
So I have a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. I think we should, because this has been a property that has generated some discussion. And it was first approved in 2021. And I think you all saw the email from Michael. I'm actually going to read that out loud. Okay, and it says, I had not been aware that there was a on-the-site visit, you know, when you mentioned a construction permit, I was not aware that there was such a thing. So, by the way, the public hearing is closed, so we're deliberating amongst the board if you guys want to, you know. So I had asked about that, and in response, I have an email from Mike Canales. Hi, Kate. Regarding the construction road permit and the interpretation of the bylaw in relation to the ongoing project at 82 Interlaken Road, I offer the following. Firstly, I would like to clarify that the assertion made by Brent White regarding the existence of a construction road permit is inaccurate. What was installed as per the 2021 plans was a temporary access road, a common practice during construction phases. While it is indeed necessary for the involved parties to obtain a permit for the driveway, it is worth noting that the approval of the home, garage, septic system, and pool reasonably implies the need for a driveway. Hence, I do not recommend denying the special permit for the driveway despite considerations regarding public good, as such denial would likely be deemed unreasonable given the prior approval of the special permit in 2021, should it be challenged. Regarding the inquiry about the purpose of the bylaw, it is essential to adopt a proactive approach during the initial special permit application process. The permitting board should assess what additional components are reasonably required for the project to progress smoothly. For instance, moving forward, whenever a property is under consideration for a special permit, it should be assumed that a driveway is necessary and its specifications, particularly in length, should be scrutinized. Should the proposed driveway exceed a length of 500 feet, it is advisable for the board to mandate a special permit application for the driveway before granting approval for construction. In light of the above, I defer to David, that's David Cameron's expertise in determining the appropriate conditions to be imposed on this driveway to mitigate any potential environmental or conservation concerns, especially given its length and location in the LPOD area. So, so that's Michael's comment, is we need to chalk this up to, learning curve, okay? But going forward, I think you all remember on Prospect Hill Road, we had a driveway greater than, and from the get-go, that was on the table as a request. So we just need to be more careful about that as a board.
Right.
Well, my
Okay.
recollection is that they were gonna revert back to the shared driveway, and that this was only gonna be a construction or a temporary access. I don't recall anything about making this the permanent driveway or a new driveway.
Right. So Gary, I think that you had a condition. Why don't we talk about that and then take it from there? So did you want to read that?
Sure. I mean, as a condition, and this doesn't mean that I'm approving it. It just means that I think it needs to be there no matter what. And that's that this driveway shall not be considered a street for purposes of the subdivision control law and may not be used to provide frontage or access to any new lot or lots.
Okay, I motion is that your motion?
Yes.
I second. Any discussion?
No, I think
All
that's-
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have a condition on the table, and with that, would you guys like to talk a little bit about the request? Any?
I think that's a very good idea,
Mhm.
Gary's motion.
Mhm.
I think that makes a lot of sense to put it in writing.
Yep. I mean, as a condition.
But I understand where Michael Canales is coming from. The driveway is there.
It was, as you all recall, I'm sure, it was not a public hearing that went terribly smoothly in 2021.
Yeah,
So let's hope we do better in the future.
yeah.
I missed that
We
one.
did talk about it, Gary. I agree with you. We did talk about the shared driveway going to be the driveway of the
Yeah,
house, but
I
that
know,
they had to
yeah.
build a construction
Yeah.
somewhere temporarily. And I think they also
So,
talked
I mean,
about
this
that at
is
the
like,
Concom.
this is like asking for forgiveness instead of permission.
You blast out all that rock, you can't say, no, you can't have that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, does anyone want to bite the bullet?
I'll bite the bullet and make the motion. We approve this
Do I have a
driveway
second?
I'll
with
second.
Gary's
Okay.
addition.
With Gary's,
Amendment, yeah.
yeah, I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so next up, we have another special permit from the same gang, and that is for, hold on a second, what is it? Hold on a second. Oh, thank you. Okay, so this is also for 82 Interlaken. And this is an amendment to an existing special permit for the Lake and Pond Overlay District. And it's increasing the lot coverage. And I'll let Brent present.
Good evening again, Brent White from White Engineering.
Rob Mooney from Widener Hudson.
And we appreciate the board's vote on the driveway permit. Madam Chair, may I just take one moment to clarify?
I'd like to stick to what we're doing now.
Fair enough. Okay. So as stated in the introduction, this
This
is
is like my husband. He always wants to have the last word.
fair enough. Fair enough.
And you've learned.
I don't usually allow it.
As stated in the introduction, this is a request to amend the Lake and Pond Overlay District Special Permit 150 feet from the high water line of Stockbridge Bowl. At the time that the house site was permitted, the board may recall that there was part of a pending sale of the property, and the ability to obtain all the necessary special permits were required to do so. At that time, the applicants did not have the services of a landscape architect. Since the time of the grant of the special permit, acquisition of the property and further design of the home and the landscape, we've as a collaborative effort here, have come up with a number of design changes associated with the permeable paver terraces around the lakefront of the home, which we had a chance to see during our site walk here, as well as some amendments to the rain garden and proposed replanting of that with Lake and Pond Overlay District. Specifically, there was a series of trees to be cut and replanted that we had submitted. There was an itemization initially approved by the Conservation Commission and also by the planning board here. And in discussion with Mr. Cameron as a part of his review of the application, the materials that I sent out today, again, I apologize for the brief time or for the chance to review that here, but I think those might actually be most relevant to walk through in terms of understanding what were the conditions approved in 2021, what is it that we're asking for today here, and then we'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you have with regards to that.
Okay, David, are you able to hear?
Yeah, I can hear fine.
Okay, great.
And first, I'll just walk through my list of just everything that changed and when the 150 feet here. First, with regards to the driveway in terms of remaining permanent, we did add deep sump catch basins just as a matter of trying to better capture, collect and reduce the velocity of that water coming off the driveway. We added some additional storm chambers.
Where do they go? Where does the water go after it goes in the catch basin? It doesn't go in the lake.
No, it does not. It goes through a series of below-grade infiltration chambers and then will overflow into our rain gardens that were already approved as part of the original stormwater scheme. I will also note that as a part of all the amendments that we're asking for with respect to the special permit have been approved by the Stockbridge Conservation Commission through the
Okay.
granting of an amended order of conditions as well as an amended stormwater permit. And just to take a step back, the order of conditions governs all work within 200 feet of Stockbridge Bowl based on both the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Stockbridge Wetlands Bylaw. The stormwater permit that they've approved governs the entire property. So we have a number of criteria which a project may need a stormwater permit. Some board members may recall in 2015, you were the permit granting authority for a stormwater permit, but any alteration of 10,000 square feet of land, 2,000 square feet of impervious area would require a stormwater permit. So for instance, the sport courts are covered under the stormwater bylaw, and we've provided the best management practices for that, even though that lies outside of the Lake and Pond Overlay District, 200-foot setback to the lake or 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. So, and I realize at the time of our submittal of the special permit, we did not have hard copies of those. I'm happy to give to the chair a copy of both the amended stormwater permit and order of conditions. The order has been recorded at the Registry of Deeds, but just so it's of the record here that that is the, we did not have that paperwork at the time of application, but we do have that now. If you like, I'll go through the packet that we submitted here
Sorry, Brett, this is from what?
from the Conservation Commission.
So this is current?
Right.
Oh, I see.
That's based on their votes at
Okay.
the December 12th public hearing. We
Okay.
just didn't have the actual paperwork until later in February after we submitted, so. So the first sheet, I'll show you all, this has a cover sheet, just again, the kind of a snapshot of what it was in 2021. And the area that you see colored in the blue and gray colors were with regards to the gravel driveway and parking areas that were to be within 150 feet of Stockbridge Bowl.
Mm.
Then around the front of the house in the orange, you see what were the permeable paver patios that were proposed as well. Shaded in the lighter polygons closer to the lake were the configurations of the two rain gardens that were shown. And the next sheet, as a part of that packet, shows again, the proposed replanting that was to be done within the really focus on the 100-foot setback, but it's obviously subject to the Lake and Pond Overlay District. And as a part of that, we had proposed that a total of 33 trees were to be removed. And a total of 64 trees would be replanted with a varying species list that, again, was trying to give the applicant some flexibility. Since that time, Mr. Mooney's office has spent a great deal of time coming up with, I'll admit, a much better landscape plan and a more robust one. On the next sheet you see here is just again what we're asking for with this application. We've got a few different colors here. So we'd be with the house, the pool, and the guest house remaining the same, the gravel driveway coming around really the same as what was proposed. But what's different here is what you see in the magenta. We are intending to utilize a permeable paver as the surface that the vehicle would park on outside of the garage, rather than leaving that as a gravel driveway surface. And part of the amendment to the special permit application, we've provided the same information on the permeable pavers that was provided to the Conservation Commission. Essentially a matter of setting the pavers with a gap in between and then submitted what the maintenance requirements are, which is essentially sweeping, leaf blowing to make sure that debris doesn't clog the void between the actual pavers themselves. So that is different from what was approved in 2021, and we wanted to document that. On the waterfront, we had the opportunity, again, at the site visit to show where the different patio spaces would be. Again, it's a different configuration and different landscape stair concept that you see in the blue, kind of on the left side of the house
over
itself here. So again, it's a different scheme than what was approved in 2021. And we wanted to ensure that what is constructed, what we ultimately seek a certificate of occupancy, the pavers, the external landscape stairs match what is the plan of record for the special permit.
Is that closer to the lake than it was?
It is not.
Corner? No, okay.
And then as a part of the next part of this was to come up with a new planting scheme, and as a part of the revisioning of the waterfront here, we've slightly reconfigured the rain gardens. Essentially the same capacity, just in a slightly different configuration that actually allowed us to reduce 4 trees that we're going to save now as a part of this proposal compared to what was asked for initially. We're still proposing to plant 64 trees in that area. And the last thing I'd like to note is in the cover letter that we submitted to the Conservation Commission that you see highlighted in yellow. One of the things that we committed to with regards to of the 64 trees were 8 of those will actually be planted at a 10-foot to 12-foot height. Initially, we had 64 trees at a 5 to 6 foot height. So it's our opinion that that represents an improvement from the plan that the board had approved in 2021. As well as additional screening plantings that have done in consultation with the neighbors that are outside of the Lake and Pond Overlay District that are better represented in this diagram right here. So again, I think there's going to be much more planting on the property as a result of all the amendments that we've sought between the Conservation Commission and what we're asking for this evening. Wanted to bring that to your attention.
What are the, excuse me, what are the plantings with this dark green between the neighbors? What kind of trees are you planting?
So we have a number of different pallets that were planted with regards to the driveway in the area where the Cohen's property would be as compared to, I'm covering their house, sorry. So here's their house. So again, in the discussion of the driveway special permit, obviously we had more evergreens to be planted as well as some native river birch. Rob, do you want to maybe walk through just the different planting areas between the stream crop, even though this is outside the Lake and Pond Overlay, so they understand what's being planted here versus on this northern boundary, then the southern boundary, please?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So in this area, here, that's a native species of the eastern red cedar. It's a Juniperus virginiana. And then within the area on the opposite side is a deciduous tree, and that's the red maple. So that takes wet feet and is good for this condition. And along with that, some understory plantings of ferns and a native sumac.
It looks to me like you had eastern hemlock on your list. I mean, I can't read this print, but.
We're discussing up by the.
Just
the-
there,
By the, on
gotten to the
the
rest.
upper driveway, not the house drive, not by the house.
Maybe we just focus on this northern planting area first.
Yeah, okay.
Are you finished with your present? Why don't you finish your presentation for that and then we can ask questions?
I was really just hoping to ask Rob to give just an overall summary of the different planting areas and the changes that happened with that, and then I think we can review the
Okay, so
findings.
finish up, Rob.
Yes, and then as part of the overall planting palette, native deciduous trees, but then alongside the neighboring properties in the areas next to the property line. Yes, a mix of the white pine and hemlock trees.
And are those the taller trees? Is that where the taller tree, you just change how tall the trees are going to be? Are those the tall trees?
Yes, the white pines, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're aware of the woolly adelgid?
Americans.
Yes, yeah, and we had some discussions with the owners about that too, in terms of some of the trade-offs between using natives that can take understory shade conditions like hemlock, and ultimately our view is that for select trees that can be sort of easily monitored, then we've had good success and think that in these conditions, sort of balancing the needs of screening with the neighbors and planting native trees, that it's a worthwhile tree.
Right, so you're probably aware that this year was, being very warm, there was not so much dieback of the woolly adelgid. So I guess I'm just wondering why you would be planting on a tree that doesn't have maybe David can speak to this better than I can, but doesn't seem to have a very promising future.
Well, I think the adelgid on large stands of trees and large forests, it's very hard to control. On individual homeowner trees, it's relatively easy with different soaps and oils. So that's that's our view that if you think of native spruces or eastern red cedar, everything has certain pests that need to be monitored, and hemlocks are really no different.
So you'd be using pesticides to monitor, treat anything that comes along?
I think we would monitor and use an organic pesticide if need be.
Okay. I don't want to. Other questions? I have more questions, but I want to let the
Not yet.
board.
Not yet. And what is going along the shorefront? These guys?
That scheme has remained relatively the same. Let's go to that sheet.
That's right, yeah.
Is there anything like that's being planted along the shore? I realize you're putting in some taller trees, but is there anything being done to the houses now? And, you can definitely get a sense of the impact from the lake. Is there anything being planted that will soften the,
64 trees will be planted.
yeah, but what about the height, the tall, because it's on a slope, what's the height of those 64 trees? When they're mature?
When they're mature, they'll be even taller. And that was part of the effort to plant more of them at the 10 to 12 foot height as opposed to all of them at the 5 to 6 foot height to start with.
That's right, yeah, and most of them will range in between, say 50 to 70 feet. So
Say most of them,
the sugar maples will, the swamp white oaks, the white pines will.
and that's along the front of the property?
That's along, so
The shoreline, is that?
in
we're
this
asking?
area, what differs from the 2021 submittal is that we're actually preserving these trees in here. So
Mhm.
these trees were slated for removal, and by pushing these rain
The rain,
gardens to the
correct.
side, those trees are allowed to stay in that area, and really focusing on the larger plantings, sort of as embracing the edges.
Yeah, I thought in 2021, when we first talked about these trees, there were going to be several trees that were left there.
That is still the
I thought
case.
That was
yes.
part
And
of,
there's actually more trees that will remain as part of what we're
Yeah.
asking for this evening compared
there
to.
were some white birch and there were some.
That is correct, yes.
Pretty
And
cool trees that you said you would leave.
yes, and one other point I just would like to emphasize too is technically with the special permit and the order of conditions that we have, we could have gone in and done the clearing that was of that permit. We felt it important for the board to have the opportunity to review this proposed planting plan as part of this process before we remove those trees. So
Yeah, thank you.
So the Ready Rock, Rob, is that something that you use, or is that off the table?
I'm sorry,
The Ready Rock that was proposed in 2021, is that off the table?
so I'm not familiar with
Ready,
this.
ready.
That's probably a good thing.
I guess that's all.
That was proposed in 2021.
yeah,
Remember?
the retaining wall, yes, we're using more of a stone for the steps and the retention of the grade in this area
Remember
here.
Christine said. it
We had an
was
engineered block wall.
Got it, okay.
I didn't remember that.
The old plan called for more of an engineered block wall along this portion of retaining the driveway, and that has since been eliminated. Again, I would say to Rob's office's credit, a much more aesthetically pleasing and
Okay.
appropriate landscape steps than.
Yeah.
The rain gardens is there a maintenance plan for the rain gardens? I mean, they're kind of, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they sound really nice, but they're not worth much if they're not maintained.
That is correct. And the nice thing about a rain garden is that your typical fall and spring cleanup in terms of leaves, pine needles, things like that, it's really removal of that debris that, again, if left over time, breaks down, starts to clog the underlying soil, then you can't get the infiltration that's been planned for as a part of that. So really just as a part of their overall maintenance of the landscape here will by default, same with the permeable pavers, by keeping them clean, free of debris, will allow them to remain porous and not be clogged here. So
Okay, Rob, is that rain gardens, is that your understanding? Fall and spring will keep them maintained?
That's right, yeah. So that there'll be a collection of basically a layered approach of shrubs, but then in any of those voids will be a meadow mix. So it allows for basically no soil to be exposed in those.
Mhm.
So those gardens will be maintained and it reduces the amount of sedimentation in them. So they'll be, it's basically a vegetated cover throughout the rain garden.
And with a number of leaves and pine needles there, that keeping that clean on a more seasonal basis, it allows to ensure that you don't have a ceiling essentially of the rain garden itself.
So you wouldn't have any trouble with moss and like growing in the rain garden and blocking all that?
With a bit of shade there.
I don't believe so. No, with bi-yearly maintenance, then I don't believe so.
Do we have that? Do we have anything written that says they need to do yearly maintenance? I mean, they said that they're going to, but I
We can make,
understand people
it a
don't, do we
make
write
it a-
anything in?
make it a condition.
Make it a
Yeah.
condition.
I mean, it's not taken for granted that they have to do this. It needs to be written in.
Can do it as a condition. Yeah. David, I think you had some questions. Can you weigh in?
Sure, and first of all, thanks, Brent, for scrambling and getting out a supplemental package today. The way you presented the revised information was really helpful for my review, so I appreciate that.
Well,
I did have a number of questions. I'll start with Kate. I think you just asked me a question a few minutes ago about hemlock.
I did, yep.
I do have some experience actually treating hemlocks for woolly adelgid with organic pesticides that have worked quite well. So I wouldn't necessarily dissuade these guys from planting hemlock. I mean, the two coniferous tree species that want to grow on this landform are eastern white pine and eastern hemlock. That's
Okay.
what these soils are suited for. So I don't see any harm in giving it a shot. And the smaller hemlocks are much easier to manage than the big ones. So
Okay. Great, thank you.
And eastern red cedar is a great species too, but the deer just love to chow on it. And they won't touch eastern hemlock. That's one of the great things. Eastern hemlock won't get browsed by anything. I do have a couple of comments, and I focused my review primarily on the original versus the current disturbance tabulations and those plan sheets that Brent sent over. And I'm just want to make sure I'm understanding the math on those. So for the original permit, the total structural features and impermeable features, as I understand it, in the LPOD totaled 5,073 square feet.
that is correct.
Okay. Brent, you've got the current number based on the changes showing is 7,455 square feet. But my math actually has it come out to 5,053 square feet. So I'm not sure how.
I'm happy to explain. Part of that was we wanted to ensure that we had accounted for the pea gravel, the pavers that were in the driveway that were originally going to be gravel. So we were trying to be conservative with everything that was being changed from the original approval. It's still pervious, but that's a difference in I'll call it the hardscape around the area of the house, both for the patios, the walls, as well as the fact that the original driveway and parking area was all originally proposed to be just gravel. In this case here, that we had the permeable pavers, that would be a different surface and that's accounted for. And that it's still well beneath the 15% lot coverage was really the intention of showing those numbers. So if you look more closely at the description of the different items here, that's what we wanted to get at.
I just added the numbers up in your table and they came up to 5,053 square feet, not 7,455. So maybe I miscalculated, but that's what those numbers came out to be. I double and triple checked them.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to walk them through. So for the house, we've got 3,262.
Okay, so that's where the problem is.
Yep.
So in the version I have today, just bear with me, I want to pull it up. I'm looking at the disturbance tabulations. Oh, okay. It's because of I think, Brent, my version is so blurry that I thought that number was
Tactic, Brett.
3,000. I thought the house was 3,262. That was what it shows up in the original one. I read it as 1,262. That's the difference right there. That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
So David,
problem solved.
are we okay for lot coverage within the LPOD?
Well, let me do a quick calculation because, and Brent, you can give me a reality check on my numbers. So you're saying the total LPOD on the property is 47,588 square feet, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if I take 7,455 and I divide that by 47588 and then multiply that by 100, I get 15.7%. However, that number, that 7,455 includes the permeable paver driveway court, which is 2,117 square feet. And I'm not sure that needs to be actually accounted for. If I look at the LPOD standards, bear with me, I'm going to pull those up. So what those say are, okay. So these are the land use and development standards 6.5.9. The maximum lot coverage by buildings, structures, and impermeable surfaces within the LPOD shall be 15% of the total lot area within the LPOD. I assume that means 15% or less.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be exactly 15, I assume.
No.
Okay, that's the way it's written, but
Well, we can fix that.
we'll make a note about that. The next
Yeah.
provision down says all driveway, parking, and loading areas shall be constructed of permeable materials. And that's what you guys have done, correct, Brent?
That is correct. And we've also, as a part of that 7,400, we've included the permeable terrace, the pea gravel, and the along the front of the house, as well as the permeable paver driveway. So again, we have a net reduction of actual impervious areas, but we wanted to be clear of all the surfaces that were within the Lake and Pond overlay district that we are asking for.
So let's just just so we're crystal clear, let's subtract those features out that are permeable. So let's take 7,455. We're going to subtract 2,117. We're going to subtract 140 for the pea gravel, right?
Correct.
Is it 140 or 340? Because the cover letter says 340 and the table says 140.
That says 340. I was looking at the stairs number. The stairs are 173, but that's impermeable. So we would be removing the permeable terrace at 1153, the pea gravel.
Hang on, let's do it one at a time.
Sure.
1153. Okay, that brings us down to 4,185. What else can we subtract? The pea gravel?
The pea gravel at 340 square feet.
Okay, so I'm going to subtract 340, but just make a note that the table on your sheet says, well, maybe again, it's blurry. Maybe I just,
It's
the resolution was just not great. Okay, so minus 340. That brings us down to 3,845. Is that it?
That is correct. Everything else would still have to count
Okay.
as
So
impermeable.
let's divide that by 47,588. Multiply that by 100, and that brings us down to 8.1%.
There you go.
So
Okay.
you're below 15%. Okay, so that's good. The I think I only had one other comment or question. Maybe it's a combination of both. And arguably one of the most important standards in here is the one that says, go back down to it. Why am I not finding it? It's the one that requires 75% coverage of natural vegetation within the LPOD, correct?
Mhm.
This one, yeah.
I'm not-
It's right under erosion and sedimentation.
Oh, I went the wrong way, didn't I?
6.5.9 B.
Yes, right there. It's the first bullet under B, subpart B. So when I look at the plan, the most current plan, I'm looking at sheet L400, right?
That's the sheet we have in front of us. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the one I'm looking at. When I look at the LPOD boundary and I look at the coverage of everything there, and I look at the footprint of the house and all the structural features, I don't have the CAD drawing, so I can't do a takeoff, right? To confirm you guys have met that. But when I look at it, and I look at the space of undisturbed land around the structure, I think intuitively, like, yeah, it doesn't look like those structures take up much more than 25% of the LPOD. The question I have though is, and maybe this is a question for the board, where's the lawn? How much does the lawn and the driveways and all these other developed features take up of that LPOD that haven't been explicitly accounted for? And when you add all those things to the structural features, are we still left with 75% natural vegetation? That's the last question I have.
I can't tell, David, from looking at the, what I have here.
Yeah, it hasn't been explicitly addressed. I'm not saying that the standard hasn't been met. I just can't, I don't have any way to really assess it because I don't have the ability to take an AutoCAD drawing and do a takeoff, add all those other things and quantify it.
Does that mean it's just down by the LPOD or is it because the things are?
No, we're just LPOD.
LPOD.
This is right now.
Okay.
This is LPOD, nothing above. So,
Do you have a
yeah,
highlighter? I've got a red pen. What I'd like to do is just trace for you all what is structural within the Lake Pond overlay districts. Thank you.
can you do it on the large thing?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So David Brent is going to trace on the large plan what is structural with a
Well, I
red.
can see, I think I can see the structural stuff if we're talking about hardscape.
Mhm.
The question is, once you add in the driveway and the lawns, wherever those lawns are going to be, because they're not explicitly called out on the plan unless I missed it. Is 75% of the LPOD still natural vegetation?
Right.
Lawn is not considered natural. Is that correct?
Is lawn,
Lawn considered natural?
Well, you
David,
guys
I mean-
don't have a definition of natural vegetation,
well, this is where
believe.
we get into a problem with the bylaw itself, I think.
right? I wouldn't consider a lawn natural vegetation, but that's just my interpretation.
Yeah,
Especially if it's fertilized.
I mean, what was the intent of that standard? Did it mean lawn? Did it mean forest? Did it mean
well, that's,
astroturf? I don't know.
this has been a problem with the bylaw that, we need to work on, I think, but because, Brent, I think you can hold on this
Okay,
exercise.
sure.
Because we have not exactly, because it's not clear. It just hasn't lent itself to, being implemented. So I don't necessarily feel we start here. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that make- yeah.
I'm just giving the board my comments. You're free to do
Yeah.
them.
No, I
We
appreciate
appreciate
it, and I appreciate the reminder that this is a problem part of the bylaw,
Mhm.
along with others. And you and I have had those conversations. So, but yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable starting tonight, given the history here.
Understood.
So, anything else, David?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right, so where are we in this process? Any more questions from the board? I had that question about the orientation. I mean, just when we were on the site visit, it didn't look like it was at an angle to me. Did anyone else notice that? Oh, you weren't there, yeah.
I think what you may have been referencing was in 2021, when we started the process, we actually had some informal site visits and an informal discussion of a proposed house. Through that iterative process, we did do a rotation and change of the house, but there's not been a change of the house since the special permit was granted.
So it's built according to that.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. It didn't look that way. It doesn't look that way from the lake either, man. So, okay, so any other questions from you guys?
The only comment I would, just before you close the public hearing, if I may, is just for all the findings that were made for the original Lake and Pond Overlay District Special Permit, our belief is that everything that we've done to change this is actually in some form or fashion represented an improvement to the natural vegetation compared to what was originally approved, and we're happy to answer any last questions.
Well, certainly it's a great sign that Rob doesn't even know what Ready Rock is. That's progress. All right, so if there are no more questions from the board, I'm going to move on and ask if there is anyone here who wishes to speak in favor. And seeing none, anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Okay, so I think we are all set. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, you guys are all set. Thank you. Okay,
Oh, thank you.
well, we're going to deliberate now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maps, like them.
All right.
You can see them.
Thanks.
Okay, so, so what do you guys think? I mean, the rain garden thing, they're just kind of, one concern I have is like the property across the lake. You know, they came in with rain gardens and swales and all that, and none of it happened.
Yeah.
So, you know, I realize it's in the special permit, but I'd like to have a condition that those rain gardens happen and that they're maintained.
Yeah,
on spring.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, they are in the special permit, so I suppose, you know, maybe it's redundant. What do you guys think?
It's okay. You know,
Okay,
it's okay
yeah,
for people
all
to
right.
be able to read it and then know
Okay.
that it's really important.
Yeah.
All right, so as a condition, I make a motion that the rain gardens as presented will be built and reviewed by the building inspector, and that the maintenance plan will be, follow best practices for maintenance of rain gardens. And yeah, that's it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think that's kind of what I think needed to happen. Anyone else any other thoughts, comments, discussion?
No, just in addition, I think when you were talking to David about the lawn,
Mhm.
we do, that is one of the things we need to write down on the list of how we're going to judge lawn in terms of whether it's natural or not. I think that needs to be not for this, but I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
totally from the side. We need to put that on the list
Another-
of something
another-
that we
Another day.
fix. Yeah, not today. I just want that on.
Thank you all for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, we've closed the public hearing,
Oh,
so, sorry, yeah.
I just saw it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Kramer, we've closed the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, it's just deliberation amongst the board, so, sorry. Okay, so anything else, or you guys want to talk about?
I like they're putting more trees in. That's a good thing.
Mhm. And not taking down as many at the.
Yeah, and not taking down the big ones in front. But anyway, that's,
So,
Again, who wants to bite the bullet?
I make a motion, we approve this presented with the addendum,
With a condition.
with a condition.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Nope.
good idea.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along here. We have Jennifer, this is for you. Thank you.
Pardon me, Kate, are you guys all set with me?
Yeah,
Oh,
thank
yeah,
you so
thank you,
much.
David.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you so much for your support. Brett?
See you next time.
Your ruler.
Like bowls.
Just fancy ruler.
Thank you.
An engineering scale.
Great. So the next thing on the agenda is just pretty short and sweet. I feel like it's, either you support it or you don't. It's just kind of straightforward. So I'm going to read it into the record here. This is to the select board has voted on this. And so this is, an item that would go on the town warrant for the town meeting. So to see if the town will amend the zoning bylaws, every instance in which the following words and phrases are found by replacing A, selectman with select board member, B, selectmen with select board members, C, board of selectmen with select board, and D, chairman with chair. And further, to authorize the town clerk to make non-substantive ministerial revisions to the bylaws to effectuate these revisions. Regardless of such nomenclature, the select board shall have all the powers and duties of a board of selectmen under the general laws, any special acts applicable to the town of Stockbridge and as provided in the town's bylaws or regulations, or take any other action in relation thereto. So, we just, any ideas, thoughts?
That's great.
Okay, so to get straightforward, I said to Michael, I can't wait to see
I
who
would-
loses this. Like, who would dare on this board, right?
I would move to support these changes.
I second.
All those in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
I,
All right, okay, so, I don't know, did we need to close the public hearing now, Jennifer? Are we all set?
This one?
Yeah,
I move we close the public hearing.
okay.
there you go.
Like we did with the driveway.
Do I have a
Does
second?
Everything backwards.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
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 Okay, let's do another motion just to be on the safe side. We've closed the publication. Who moves to approve the change in,
I move to approve the changes.
And I'll
Second.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think we're covered there. Next up, we have a sign request for 44 Main Street.
With the most patient man on the planet.
I actually tried to move you up, but we couldn't.
Really appreciate it. but
Pull up the chair.
I actually got stuff done.
I was gonna say. It's quiet.
I tried to put you before the town warrant, but that didn't take so much time, so it's not a big deal, but
It's fine.
yeah, public hearings are public hearings.
So what we have here, I'm John from Graphic Impact Signs representing Berkshire's Boutique. We have a proposed wall sign.
Thank you.
This is a multi-tenant building. According to the zoning bylaws, multi-tenant building, 16 square feet. The sign proposed is 13 square feet. It's not illuminated. Is of the same dimensions of the other signs. We had put the application in that the sweet shop sign was removed. We were in the process of removing it, and then I backed off of that saying, you know what, we better have the meeting first. Because if we ran into any issues and the sign was grandfathered or any concerns, then it would be there for us or you to review leading up to this meeting. So
Okay,
though the application said it was removed, it is not removed. It will be.
I noticed that today when I drove by. So this is fairly straightforward. If you go to our sign bylaw to the section on permanent signs, 6.8.8 and or 6.8.9 in the business zoning district. If you look at number 2, for a single building with multiple establishments, each establishment is permitted one sign not to exceed 16 square feet in area for each separate establishment, provided that all such signs shall be attached flat against the wall of the building and no sign shall project over a parapet wall. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so with that, this meets the bylaw and I make a motion that we approve. Do I have a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, you're all set.
Thank you.
It's a
Good
place.
question.
Patience
When we
is
get these
paid off.
approved, do we get any documentation? that-
Jennifer, do, is there anything?
When we did the Mountain One sign. I just want to make sure I'm not,
A copy of the sign when Kate signs it.
yeah, that would be fine. It's just that at this point, I like to put them in the folders and then have them for future documentation. And in some cases, my client asks for them. And I very much appreciate it. So thank you all.
Yeah, take care.
What are they
Thank you.
selling?
So it's a boutique shop, so it's more clothing, but
Okay.
it's a new store that's relocated to here. I don't know exactly what they have for sale in there. We were asked after we did project across the street, she approached us in regards to doing her signs. And then I just was recently approached again about another project. So I'll be back in front of you.
Nice.
But I'm learning your
Bring other
bylaws
work
to
when you
make this
come.
go smooth like tonight. So thank you all.
All right,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Hey,
Looks like I need to. Have you looked at the windows?
are we good?
I don't know.
Seem to be.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.